Hell, you won.
We're just gonna wing this. We don't have anything planned, so.
No.
Bill's gonna do some impersonation.
Yes, I have slides from my vacation to Yellowstone that we'll be watching over here.
So done by Old Faithful, me.
We shouldn't have pet that bear.
We do have a mic out there if you guys want to take audience questions.
Sure.
We love audience questions.
Yeah, that
You
always
have
brings
that
up
this time.
more than I can remember. Yeah, it's like, we want to find out what you guys want to know.
What do you want to know? Any questions?
So yeah, if anybody would like to speak, please go ahead and come up to this microphone right here. You can make a line if you so wish. Okay.
I'll go down there and ask you a question.
Okay.
You can go down there and ask me a question.
I guess we should introduce ourselves, you know. This is Tony Anselmo, I'm Bill Farmer, and we're the voice of Goofy and Pluto and Donald Duck and many others. And so we've been doing this a long time, and we'd be glad to answer anything you'd like to know. Yes, our first question.
First question of the day.
This question's on behalf of the guy sitting all the way back there. His legs are killing him, and therefore he had me to ask a question for you. His bill is in the mail. The question is for both of you, if at all possible. How did you both come across your individual roles as Goofy and Donald Duck? Was it like an audition where you just kind of say, hey, do this voice? How did that work for you both?
Okay, you want to start? You actually were doing
My
it.
story's longer, you start.
Oh,
I could take the whole time with mine.
yeah, okay. Then I'll start. I grew up in South Central Kansas, and when I was a little child, I was a strange kid, and I would do a lot of voices around the house, and I used to do impressions of all the old movie stars and stuff, and I would come to dinner and, do George Burns saying, "Mother, I'd like a cigar, and can I have some mashed potatoes?" And my parents were like, "Our Billy's weird," No outlet for anything artistic in the middle of Kansas. So long story short, I got into radio. My degree was in broadcast journalism. Kicked around in radio for a number of years. Then got in Dallas, Texas, got into stand-up comedy in the early 80s. Did that for about 4 or 5 years. And on the advice of an agent, they said, well, you do a lot of voices and stuff. You ought to go out to Hollywood and see what you can do. I got an apartment in Hollywood where I'm still traveling, doing stand-up comedy. And about 4 or 5 months after moving there, this was in probably December of 1986, my agent just called and said, do you do any of the Disney characters? In the early 80s, they hadn't decided on one particular voice for any of the characters. For example, at Disneyland, they had Jack Wagner doing all of the voices. And not the best voices I've ever heard, but he was a great announcer. And records would have someone, but with the advent of the Disney Channel, where you saw a lot of old stuff and new stuff, Roy Disney, Michael Eisner, and that regime, they wanted to settle on one voice for each of the characters. So I did this audition, I said, well, I kind of do Mickey, if you can kind of get in the ballpark, if you can do a falsetto, you're, gosh, oh boy, that's all I could do. But Goofy was my favorite character. Or she was just going to fill in the wheelhouse. I did an audition in December of 1986. My first job was, they called me a few weeks later and said, hey, they'd like to use you as the voice of Goofy. And they do not give you a crown and say, you're now the voice from now on. You're the official voice. It was for one job called Disney's Doggone Valentine, January 23rd of 87. Same day that I met Tony, who was sitting there, and as an animator, he was drawing Donald. And I thought to myself, well, we don't have to draw these guys. I had no idea. I thought, no, just talk like him. Okay, so I got through that. Then about a month later, they called me again for another job, a one-off kind of thing, and through the years, it just kind of gradually built until now I've probably done over 3,000 different jobs for Disney as Goofy and Pluto and various other little sundry characters, and they're still hiring me. So I think I've got the job.
You got the job.
I think so, finally.
Congratulations, Bill.
Thank you.
My story's a little bit longer because I started as an animator on The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King and it was a small group. It was still run by the Disney family, and Clarence Nash was the original voice of Donald Duck from 1934, and I was kind of a class clown, and Donald wasn't a voice that I could do, so I asked him how to do it. He showed me, and I couldn't do it. But I would practice in the car, in the shower, and I went to him one day and I said, "Is this right?" And he said, "It is right." And he didn't tell anybody, but he had leukemia. And so he started spending time. He would come in my room where I was animating, and he'd say, "Well, if Donald was in this situation, what would he say? Or if Mickey said that, what would Donald say? Or try saying this word or say that." And I thought, he must be bored. But it was fun, and I, admired him, and I went along with it. And I think in hindsight, he was really trying to make sure that I could do it. It was a 3-year process, and that I would be respectful to his legacy and not try and make it my own. And it was an arrangement that he made with Ron Miller, who was the Walt Disney's son-in-law, who was the CEO at the time. So it was really Donald's 50th year. Clarence got the recognition that he deserved. He put his handprints in the Chinese theater, and he was on the Tonight Show and the Oscars, and because it was the half-century mark for the duck. And he was supposed to be the Grand Marshal for the Rose Parade. And I went to the parade, and he wasn't in the car. And I called his wife, Margie, and she said, "Well, Clarence is in St. Joe's, which is the hospital across from Disney Studio, and he wants to talk to you." So I went to wish him a quick recovery, and instead he said, "Well, I'm afraid I'm not long for this world, and I've already talked to Ron Miller and Roy E. Disney, and you'll be the official voice when I pass." And I went, "What?" So it was bittersweet. It wasn't something to get excited about, because my friend was dying, and I felt a very heavy weight of something to be very protective of, and I still am. So in my case, they did give me a crown where they said, "Okay, now you're it." And for about until the 90s, when traditional animation became a felony, I was doing both. And then when John Lasseter made it all CG, then all the people who worked there learning that craft were all working at Home Depot. But I had the blessing of continuing on with the duck, which I still do. So.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
And we gotta say something, I think, I don't know if you know, that our voice of Minnie Mouse for the last 30, well, probably the same time you, was it? Because I thought you both started on the same show.
It may have been, I don't know what show, but Russi Taylor was the voice of Minnie Mouse, who just died last Friday.
Yeah,
After
lost another one of the games.
we had like 30-some years of working together, and she was an incredible lady, so we should mention that. Wish her family all the best.
And a lot of fans don't know that Minnie and Mickey were married.
In real life. Yeah, they weren't when we started.
No.
They were both in bad marriages. They met each other, and it was like Mickey and Minnie falling in love. It's like the characters. They really were Mickey and Minnie. Fell in love, got divorces from their respective spouses, and got married, I think, in 91. I can't remember. I think that's what they'd said. And they were Mickey and Minnie, as much as any two humans could be. They really were.
And so much of them.
Yeah.
I never saw people hold hands, and it was like the perfect...
They were perfect together, yeah. And you can see the chemistry, and that's, I think, why they as the characters, just embody Mickey and Minnie. They really did.
So now they're Mickey and Minnie are together again.
Yep.
And physically, they're both in Forest Lawn, right next to Walt Disney. So that's kind of cool.
Mhm. And now we brought the entire audience
Sorry.
down. So we need to brighten this up with a happy question.
Wasn't I working on Goof Troop?
Oh, Goof Troop was the very first series that I worked on. And about 1990 is when I think we started on that. And that was very scary. First of all, because my character, I was the lead of a cartoon series, I go in, and in those days, we recorded ensemble. In other words, all the actors were around their microphones, and we had a script, and we did it like a radio play. But all of the other actors were like the top actors in Hollywood. We had Frank Welker, Nancy Cartwright, Dana Hill, Jim Cummings, Rob Paulson, April Winchell. These were like, you know, heavyweights here, and I was the title star. And yeah, it was tough. It was tough in the beginning because we didn't have a rehearsal. They just gave us our scripts when we got there. Sometimes they were writing the end while we were doing it. And we would just, boom, plow through it, doing about a 43-page script in about we had 4 hours. We usually got through in under 3 hours. But it was great, you know, trial by fire. And but it was, you know, one of my favorites, and I believe they're going to be putting that as well as all the other Disney afternoon series be available when they come out with the Disney Plus streaming service later this year. And I think I heard that they are like you know, up-resing or whatever they do to bring them back and, you know, get them ready for TV again.
Do you get residuals for that?
Yeah, occasionally.
No, but I mean, will we? I don't know.
Oh, will we? That's a good question. I never know. I never know. But hopefully.
No, but it's on
yeah.
streaming, you don't get a cent.
I did, yeah, you never know about residuals. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they aren't. I did a movie called Mom and Dad Save the World where I did some background voices. I got a residual check for 1 cent. I kept that, man. It's like screwed up their computers. Why doesn't, we're 1 cent off. This guy never cashed his check, you know. So, but I got that mounted on my wall to keep me, you know, honest, I guess. Humble, yeah. 1 cent.
Ready for questions?
Yeah. Hi. So my question is, so for the last like 15 plus years, Donald and Goofy have been heavily featured in the Kingdom Hearts game series. So I was kind of wondering how different was being part of that different from compared to like the TV shows and movies and shorts with the characters. Like was it like just like reading your scripts by yourself, or was it like or did you ever do table reads or anything?
The characters are the characters no matter what they're in, so it's really our job to ensure the integrity of the character and make sure it's the same as it's always been and always will be. So there's really no difference in that between Kingdom Hearts or DuckTales or Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
But we did have to translate it into English from Japanese, which was...
Yeah, and video games are a little different than a cartoon series. When you get a script for a cartoon series, it starts on page 1, and let's say line 8 is Goofy's. Where's Howdy Donald? You know, and I say that, and then I'll go on to line 13 or 26 and go from the beginning of the script. And I'll usually read the script so I get a good idea of what the story's about. Kingdom Hearts was done in Japan before it was done in America. It's the only project like that I've done. And so you go in, and we had 4 hours to, they do it in 4-hour blocks, which by SAG rules is the maximum you can do it. And you do as many lines as you can. And it's all in Japanese in your headphones, so I'm hearing the Japanese Goofy go, "Oh, Sora, what you know, and I don't understand what he's saying. Like, Sora, watch out, it's the Heartless. And we have to watch the screen because it's already animated and try and get the lip flaps as close as we can and the length to the Japanese words, so they have very little re-editing and reanimating to do. So the closer you get, it's easier on them. And it could be quite, but I have no idea what they're saying before me or after me, and they give us a big binder with like thousands of lines of dialogue that are all the characters doing. And you'll skip around, it's not linear. It's like, okay, you're in Halloween world, Halloween town world, and then you go, oh, you're with a Little Mermaid. And okay, you just don't get any linear story. It's just doing lines, and it's watching the video, putting your lines in their, it's very, you know, so people always ask me, what the characters and stuff do you like in the game? I never can get that far because I'm just concentrating on putting this one line at a time in the video and get, okay, we're going on, okay. And so we do those in 4-hour blocks, and then they'll space them out months at a time, and we'll go, oh, you got another 4 hours now. We're doing some more stuff, and you forgot what you did the last time. So unlike anything else I've done, yeah, that was unique in that regard.
That's a good point, and I forgot about that.
Yeah, and I was doing Pluto on one of them, and they had some people from Japan who didn't speak any English. And one of them was giving me a direction in Japanese, and it was like, oh, woof, woof, woof. And I go, woof, woof, woof. Oh, that's big. Okay. It was very odd. It was very strange, but it was a delight, and everyone's so wonderful. It's also weird because they videotape you when you're doing the voice. They get a little video camera, so you're trying, I don't want to pick my nose and stuff, you know. And that's kind of a distraction for me. I didn't like that. I don't know why they're doing that, but it's so they could study movements and the way your arms move or something, maybe add that in later on. But it's a unique challenge to do that, much different than, say, a movie or a cartoon series.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, I kind of have 3 questions, so I'll go down here.
Oh, thank you.
For Bill Farmer, how do you feel about the new TV series on Disney that just recently came out this summer, Amphibia and your character?
Okay, that is, Amphibia is just premiered about a month ago. It's a series. I play a character named Hop Pop, who's an old kind of gripey frog, who's kind of got a Western sounding voice like this. And it's interesting doing an original character as opposed to, say, Goofy, because Goofy was well known before I stepped into that role, and I have to fit my performance into that template. Hop Pop, I got to come up with a voice myself. I just did an audition, they liked it, and when we did the pilot, I made him in the audition a little bit more deep southern, and it was more kind of like almost a Colonel Sanders kind of sound. But we got in that, and they said, no, so can you make it a little less deep south? It seems he kind of gets riled, and for some reason West Texas kind of sounded a little bit more like he did, and it just kind of fit. It was different because for once we did a pilot, and then we waited like a year and a half until we did the pilot, and in that span of time, I think they replaced all of the other major characters except for me, so I got through the original casting. Yeah, I got very good luck on that, and then we started recording, and you'll see what's called an animatic, which is kind of a storyboard that's animated, but it's just drawings, black and white pencil drawings. I had no idea really what these characters looked like, the colors and what this, and they wouldn't even do that for most of the ancillary characters. I had no idea what they looked like, and we're like 10, 15 stories in. I don't know what the other characters even look like. And then we start getting back pieces of animation because, as I understand, they send it off to, I think it's animated in Korea, and it comes back, and you see it in color. Oh, he's purple. Oh, he's orange. Oh, his tongue's green. You have no idea. And now it's much easier because I know these characters. I've seen this series, and on season 2, it's much easier because I can visualize in my mind what these characters are, where the first 15 episodes, I'm just relying on the director to tell me, there's a giant monster caterpillar that's attacking you, and so you got to react to that. But it's a lot of imaginations involved. But it's a lot of fun to do it. I'm pleased with the way it's doing, and I love it because it's pretty. It's 2D animation, which I love, and it's got some great stories. It's fun to do.
Okay, a second question is for both of you. Throughout the years, your character has changed from different shows and designs, but which version of Donald Duck and Goofy versions is your favorites?
Which version is your favorite of Goofy?
I love the classic. I love the classic Goofy from probably, of the series I've done. I think House of Mouse was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that because, it's hard to tell. I, of course, always go back in my mind. I see him in the 1930s cartoons from like Boat Builders, Lonesome Ghost. That era is my vision of Goofy when I pictured him. And he changes, yeah, he's changed quite a bit over the years. He had like a bow tie and an orange sweater and Goof Troop. In Mickey Shorts, he's more dippy dog with a little bit more country thrown in, a little bit more kind of hick kind of
More
attitude.
teeth, lots of teeth.
A lot, yeah, more teeth and no pants and a tail. So, you know, yeah, they have changed it. It kind of changes your performance a little bit. And you just kind of have to embrace that and see if you can make this thing work with, because they're changing the boundaries on what the characters can do. Things that we could do on Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, or couldn't do on that, we can do in the Mickey Shorts. And so, you know, we have much more freedom in that. But, yeah, I
Well,
think
they
the
really
classic,
shouldn't change though.
yeah.
Since I was trained by Walt's guys, what they taught me, which I think is important, is that the integrity of the character is the most important
Yeah.
thing. If you have somebody in your life, this is what they told us. If you have somebody in your life that you love, like your grandmother or a teacher, somebody that you care a lot about, and you've known for most of your life, if they suddenly show up to Thanksgiving dinner with a little different face and a different voice, that's
Like Body Snatchers kind of thing.
yeah,
It's not really
yeah.
them.
And whenever they've tried that, it didn't work. Like there were a lot of shows where they tried to be creative and change, they would say, making it relevant, and they'll lose half their audience because the Disney fans expect what they grew up with.
Yeah.
And then they might, I think DuckTales got more of a kind of a comic book following than the people that go to the parks, Disneyland. So if you're asking my favorite, it's going to always be what Walt came up with, because if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And those 1930s, 1940s designs, I think, speaking as an animator, are the most appealing. So why change it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, within reason, you can kind of change the look a little bit, but again, if the personality is there, if they are, you know, their personality, if it's intact, you can get away with a little bit more. But
Everything that you've done,
Yeah,
it's,
well.
gets goofy.
yeah,
No matter if it's
even
the
if it-
shorts
yeah.
or if it's the.
And that's the thing, if you keep the personality intact, you're going to be okay, I think.
Okay, final question. What advice or tips would you give to people today who either want to be an animator or a voice actor or an actor in general?
Well, I teach voiceover, and so I've had an interesting time talking with a lot of people. I always tell people that want to come out to California to get involved in cartoons, what should I do? I said, get rich parents. And it's very important to be able to have you're not going to come out there and just boom, jump into it and support yourself. You almost have to start as a hobby, and hopefully you get to a point where you can actually take it on as a career. But acting is the most important part of it. When I started, I took classes from a guy named Dawes Butler, who was a great voice artist. Hanna-Barbera did Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, about 40-some major characters. He was the one that said, you're not just doing silly voices. The voice is part of it, but it's the acting that's the most important, because that's the personality. And so, you know, and he would teach us that, yeah, and people always say, you know, people tell me I got a great voice, I should be a voice artist. And I say, that's kind of like saying, I got a great guitar, I should be a guitarist. Can you play that instrument? Can you play this instrument that you got?
I like that.
That's the most important part.
That's a good analogy. Did you just make that up?
I've been telling that and said for years.
I like the guitar thing.
Yeah, like that.
Because the voice doesn't come from here, it comes from here.
Yeah.
It's gotta be the soul of the character, the voice is just frosting on the cake.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that can do Mickey and Donald and Goofy and impressions, but try maintaining that for 4 hours in a session and taking words that they just give you and making them jump off the page and become real. That's the tough part.
Thank you.
Did you get all that on your phone there? No, you can't post that.
First off, welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Lovely to have you on our island. This question kind of comes off a little bit of her second one. So For you, Bill, in the Goofy movie from the 90s, and for you, Tony, the more recent DuckTales series, have given you both the chance to kind of do some things with the Goofy and the Donald voices that wouldn't necessarily show up in, say, House of Mouse. Some, genuine, for lack of a better term, human drama, while still keeping that same voice that some might feel is more, fits more in the comic mold. So how do you approach, doing something like for you, Bill, the interactions with your son, just being a single dad, and for you, Tony, some of the stuff that I don't want to spoil too much for folks who haven't seen later in the current DuckTales series, but some of the more weighty material later, while still keeping the voice.
DuckTales was, I think, one of the examples of something where they tried to change it and it didn't work. And we're making these for you, we're not making them for us. And I always tell a producer or director, who's your audience? It's going to be Disney fans, and they're going to expect something because this has been around, they've grown up with it. So changing it is not a good idea. And for DuckTales, they wanted a lot of dialogue. They wanted the Gettysburg Address and long monologues. And they didn't grow up with it like their audience did, but they were going to come in and do something different. And I would always say, if Walt didn't do it, there's probably a reason. It's not that it didn't occur to him. Like doing a lot of dialogue with Donald is probably not a good idea. They said, but we really want it. So at that point, when Roy Disney was around, if something like that came up, I could say, we can. And if I had any problem, Roy would step in and say, listen to him, he's been doing this for 40 years. He was apprenticed with Clarence Nash. He's going to know more, you might want to listen to him. And they also sped it up 20%. So when you have Donald doing paragraphs of dialogue, which is not a good idea, and then you speed it up 20%, I had to do it anyway, because Roy was gone. So I did it, but then if you look online, all the comments about DuckTales, it's like, how come I can understand Tony on the shorts, but I can't understand him on DuckTales? And that's why. And so they blame me. They don't say, well, they probably wrote too much dialogue, or they probably sped it up. They think, well, he's getting older, So, to their credit, they learned the hard way what didn't work, and by the time we got to season 2, they cut the dialogue down and they didn't speed it up anymore. So it's really about not doing anything different. It's, you don't want to, the characters are who they are, and they know what they know, and they react like they react, and trying to mess with that never works.
Yeah. And in the case of the Goofy movie, there had been through Goof Troop, there was Max. Max, was Goofy's son, and now we're just taking that into a later time. But we had to add a lot more layers to him of emotion, like you're saying. How do you do Goofy and have him be sad? And from my classes with Dawes Butler, he had always said that all the characters have a base emotion. Goofy's pretty optimistic. He'll return to that, but he can be sad, he can be angry, but he'll return. It's kind of like almost on Inside Out, where you have anger, that's his base emotion. Joy, that's the base emotion. Fear, base emotion. Goofy's pretty optimistic, so we know the base emotion of these characters, and you can stray from it, but you've got to go back to it. Pretty happy-go-lucky, but he can be hurt. And so my son was about 5 years old when the Goofy movie came out. So I certainly substituted him and my relationship for him in my mind and pretended I was talking to my son when I was doing the lines for a Goofy movie, just imagining how I would feel, if he disappointed me. And I could get to that emotional state, because we're really selling emotions, but it's not just words. Anyone can read the words, but they're pushed out by emotion. And so whatever that emotion is, that's got to be real, and that just takes practice, kind of getting into that emotional state, so you can, you know, be angry or hurt or happy or whatever it is.
And in that case, that's okay, because Goofy hadn't, at that point, done a feature before, so you need more depth than 7 minutes. And there's also precedent of Goofy being sad and Goofy and Wilbur.
Yeah.
He thinks Wilbur's Wilbur!
Yeah, it's more comedic sadness in that, and we were kind of going for a little more real, heartfelt, but yeah, exactly. And it also depends what the scene is. If it's going for comedy, you do it a little bit broader and stuff, and make it funnier. If it's that heartfelt thing, that's tough to do too. It took a while to get that.
To your credit.
Thank you both very much. And just for the record, Tony, whatever technical hiccups might have been there, I felt that for Donald in that show, that the performance still really came out.
Thank
And
you, I
that was-
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I actually wanted to ask also about Kingdom Hearts. So, do you guys ever have the opportunity to see the finished product? Do you play the games?
I can play Pong. That's about all
I thought I'd ask. I didn't want to make a judgment.
I've seen it played by others. When they had like a rap party, they had some screens up and people were playing it, and that's about the only time I've seen it played. My son can play it and has played the first game, or I don't know if he's played the third one yet, but I've watched him. But no, don't put me in front of him.
I'm the same, I saw it at the same place you saw it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's what it looks like. Okay.
Yeah, I really love those games. They're very close to my heart, and I played them a lot since I was like 10, I think. So, thank you for putting your hard work into it.
Thank you for saying so.
It's kind of funny when you do that, because we'll do a line, let's say I'm talking to Mickey, hi Mickey, howdy Mickey, what's going on Mickey? You might do it several different ways, and then you see it in the cartoon, and sometimes you go, that sounds good, other times you go, why'd they take that take? I could have done that better, and you start, analyzing it.
A lot.
Well, thank you, and thank you for coming to our
Oh,
con.
our pleasure, our pleasure.
Quick question here. You both, I think, have been doing each other's voices on occasion throughout the panel today. In cases where, for example, you have a recording to do, and let's say someone, heaven forbid, gets like tonsillitis or is otherwise sick and out of the picture, with Disney, is there like a set, I don't know, structure for if you can't do Goofy, who's next in line?
No, then they gotta wait.
Yeah. No.
There have been many, many times, in fact, recently when Rusi was in poor health, they waited, or they used the library.
Yeah.
They will go back and use, they'll give expository dialogue to another character, and they'll use the library for whoever's got the flu. But it's, back to the point of integrity of the character, you don't give it to anybody else.
Right, and so they've never, they don't have a backup for us, and that's
Top security
nice.
then,
Yeah, and hopefully they don't, Here's your replacement. No,
This is the guy that's gonna do it now.
But in 32 years, I've probably only missed 4 or 5 days of not being able to do Goofy. I did one job once where I went in, I had about 101 fever. And I thought, I'll knock this out. It's a few lines of dialogue, but it was some video. It was like video educational films, like cleaning your teeth. And it was the walk around, the guy in the suit, And I had like 160 lines. And I go, oh my God. So 3 videos, and I'm doing it, and I start shivering. I'm sick as a dog, literally, by the 3rd one. And I had about 105 fever when I left that day. Yes, and I went to my doctor and said, I'm going to be giving you a shot of this antibiotic. If you're not much better in about 2 hours, I'm putting you in the hospital. But it worked.
That's dedication.
Yeah, and
With me, it's teeth.
teeth,
If my mouth or sinuses, I can actually have laryngitis and still do the duck because I don't use my vocal cords. It's not really a voice, it's a magic trick. But if I have a cold and my sinuses are congested, or if I had a filling, then I gotta wait a couple days because it won't come out. And there have been many times where they'll just wait a few days.
Yeah, and it's never been that much of a problem in 30-some years. I've been sick a couple of times where I did have kind of some bronchitis and I kind of sound like that. But when I did Goofy, you couldn't hear it, so I went in and did it anyway.
If there's no objections, can I ask one more question in regards to that?
To do what?
Can I ask you an extra question, if that's all right?
Sure.
So, for example, Toy Story 4, the late great Don Rickles had a few lines put in, kind of mishmash as Potato Head, and of course he passed away a few years prior. By my limited knowledge, it took previous lines and kind of put certain words together to make, I don't know, 5 or 6 different lines in the actual movie. And you had mentioned with the voice of Minnie Mouse, who had passed away unfortunately again last Friday, they might have put in a few bits here and there as best they could. How much of an exhaustive process is that, or to be more specific, I guess, how technical can they get with that? Like,
They have come so far with technology and recording voice now that, and for me it's an advantage, because I will do 5 takes of the same line, and they'll take the first word from the first take and the second word from the fourth take, and they will put them together seamlessly like I said it, and it will sound much clearer because I hit each one of those words they picked the clearest on different takes, and they'll put it together like I meant it that way. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, and for example, with Minnie, let's say we're doing a show and they need her to say, you know, gosh, Mickey, I love you so much. Well, she's probably said that 100 times in shows throughout the years. They've got all that catalog so they can find words that she has said and write the script around that and still use Minnie in it. But there's nothing like the original voice, so it's a real tragedy that she's not going to be able to be with us. And so they will be obviously casting a replacement sometime.
thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you for your question. Any other question?
Yeah.
How are we on time? I'm not watching.
It's 3:50 right now, and you guys have until 4:50.
Okay, another 20 minutes.
Do you find that when you acting in your daily life kind of changes you, since you're playing iconic, family-oriented characters?
Well, playing an iconic character like that, I didn't quite get the whole question.
Do you do it in your sleep?
Oh, do I
you
do
do
it
it
in
at
my
home over dinner? You do it in the grocery store?
People say, yeah, you've got to put a little bit of yourself in the character because you have your experiences of life, and so you got to use your experiences. And I probably changed Goofy from, say, the Pinto Colvig Goofy because I had to put a little bit of me into it. And the first couple of years I was doing a Goofy, I was doing an impression of Pinto's Goofy. And it was an impression. And then they had a thing at Disneyland called State Fair, and I had to do the spiel for the monorail. And it wasn't written for Goofy. And I had no idea how to make it sound like Goofy because Goofy had never said these words and they weren't written in his vernacular. So I started doing it, and during that process, I kind of eventually got Goofy. I got his personality. And from about that time on, from then on, I could make up almost anything that I said sound like Goofy had said it, whether it's, the right thing Goofy would say or not, but I could make it, say it in the way that he would say it, because I got the character. And so that's learning the character, learning the soul of a character. And once you get that, especially an iconic character like Goofy that's been around since 1932, you want to pay tribute to the legacy and treat the character right.
And that's to the point of what we were talking about. I don't personally think you got away from Pinto Colvig. I think that it's not like I said, it's not the voice, it comes from here. And your Goofy is the personality, the soul, as you say, of Goofy, just as much as Pinto's was. And I don't think that Wayne sounded exactly like Walt, but his soul was Mickey.
Right.
And it's the same with Christy Metopoulos, who's doing most of Mickey now in the shorts and the parks and the new attractions that they're doing. He's got the soul of Mickey. He's not just imitating Wayne. And Roosie's going to be, I think, I don't know how, because I think of all of us, I should speak for myself, but I think of all of us, Roosie's the only one that was better than what Walt had, because Minnie, in Walt's cartoons didn't do much more than giggle or say, you know, don't step on my petunias! And Brucey added so much more depth to the character, but it was Minnie Mouse. It was the soul of Minnie Mouse, and
It's gonna be tough, yeah, it's gonna be very tough.
Like, can you like do Hamlet and Goofy's voice?
Say something as goofy.
Doors, well, I'd be glad to.
No, but like, have you gone to the point where you can do Hamlet as Goofy?
I couldn't quite understand.
One more time.
Do Hamlet? No, I couldn't do Hamlet as me. You know, dear Romeo, you know, wherefore thou runnest, Juliet, actually. So. That would be fun.
Not sure if this counts as a weird question, but what was it like working on Roger Rabbit? With so many huge voices back then.
Oh yeah, you had more of it. That was actually the first movie I had anything to do with. I did not do Goofy in that movie. The guy named Tony Pope, who preceded me, did a little bit of Goofy in that. Although I stuck Goofy in because one of the things that I did, I was on the ADR group, which is adding little incidental characters throughout the movie. And one of the things we did at the very end, we sang a song, Smile, Darn You, Smile. And one of the run-throughs, I did it as Goofy, but at that time I was doing the voice of Goofy, and I decided, I'll sneak him in there a little bit. And so I did sing that as Goofy. So yes, I'm in it, but Tony Pope started that movie and finished that out. And I think only a couple of Goofy lines remain in the final thing. But it was a lot of fun. That was, like I say, the very first movie that I ADR'd on, did background voices. And it's a whole different ball game than doing principal recording on a cartoon, because there you're looking at the movie, even if it might still be in rougher format and not fully finished animation, and they'd say, okay, you're the little character in the back and you're doing this like I did, like, you know, Monsters University, or let's take Beauty and the Beast, for example. I was like a lot of the townspeople attacking the village, you know, going up to the castle and get the beast, kill the beast, and stuff like that. Toy Story, I got to do like background where I was in the Pizza Planet doing the mission control, like D-minus 29, 28, getting ready for launch, those kind of things. And the weirdest thing I've ever done, I think, had to be in Beauty and the Beast, where Gaston is singing in the bar about decorating with antlers and all of this kind of stuff, and he throws 3 eggs up in the air, and they go, that's me, I'm eggs. It's the most obscure thing I think I've ever
That's a
done.
whole lot of really good trivia. Do you know if they used any of the Goofy that you slipped in there?
Yeah, I can kind of hear it, but it's stacked. It's, you know, like
Doesn't
3
matter,
of it.
that
It is kind of in there, yeah.
That's great.
I just stuck that in there, so. Smile, darn you, smile. So I stuck it in there.
For me, I got to work with Mel Blanc, and I think it was one of the last things he did, and it was a great honor for me to work with the greatest voice actor of all time, I think. So that was the treat for me on that. And we did it together.
I was going to ask that myself.
There's a thing on YouTube, if you look up me and Mel Blanc on Roger Rabbit, you can see the session. They filmed it.
I didn't see that. I haven't seen that.
You got a smartphone?
I don't know how to work it.
That's
That's my dog.
Look at that one. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. My question is, when your kids were growing up and you were taking them to school with the iconic voices that you had, did you have any songs on the radio that you would sing to them in the voices?
I would. I have one son, and when he was young, you know, he grew up thinking that everyone did this for a living. He was a Hollywood kid. I remember we went down to Florida, and his granddad was going off to work. He said, "Well, Austin, I've got to go off to work. I'll see you later." He said, "What voice do you do?" He did say that.
Really?
Yeah, he thought people do this for, you know, because we had Uncle Wayne, Aunt Minnie, Uncle Tony. he went to a school where, you know, like Ray Romano's daughter was one of his classmates. The Olsen twins were in the class ahead of. I mean, it was a high school where, you know, a lot of showbiz kids. And it's like, you know, most people think it's cool. Yeah, my dad's goofy. My dad directed you. It's kind of weird. So he's always been a Hollywood kid, but he's a professional drummer now and does session work and stuff. He's also an audio engineer. So he followed in that regard. He's a much better drummer, but he can do goofy. He will not do it around me. But
You've heard him?
I have heard him do the like. Yeah, he's actually, yes, better than I would have thought.
Really?
Yeah, he can.
Well,
He
maybe
can
you
do
can
it.
have an apprentice there.
I know, but getting him to do anything that I want, no. It's
Well,
tough.
if he can do it, then he can make some residuals.
I know,
on the side. Why
you know,
not?
who knows?
Nah, I don't want to do it.
I know. He does. So, but yeah, I used to read books to him when he was a kid, and I try and, you know, he'd always want me to read stories, and I'd get tired of them, and I'd try and skip pages. Because once upon a time, there was an evil king, and they lived happily ever after. There, thank you. Good night. Okay. Don't do it. So,
I could do that. I had nieces and nephews that I would read Disney stories to, and I would put in Donald and a bad Goofy and a bad Mickey.
yeah, we all mess around with voices.
Well, thank you for having us.
Any other questions? Okay, yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure how the process of you getting the Goofy voice, but was it like a very stressful audition knowing that?
No, I got a cassette of the original voice, Pinto Colby, and things that he had said in the 1930s, like, you know, it's a lady. Well, you know, turkey, lobster, sweet potato, boy, and I had to do that. And I only had it a weekend. I got it like on a Friday. I had to do the recording on a Monday, just at my agent, and they sent it in with all the other people that tried out. So, no, it was like almost, I'm going to try out for Goofy. But you don't want to get too amped up about it because the odds are so against you that you, okay, another one I didn't get. You know, and then they called and I go, oh, okay. But I still was a little guarded. You don't want to get too excited about something like that because it can go away real quick. And I didn't know if it would be just one time. I didn't know if it would be, you know, maybe 2 times. Then I got the second one, and that was kind of cool. And I got working with my first celebrity the second time, which was DTV. I got to work with a guy, Gary Owens, if you remember Gary. And he was that guy from Laughing who had, hello, I'm Gary Owens. And had that, he always talked like this, you know. And he was very warm and, you know, inviting. Well, hello, Bill, how are you? And we got to do an opening for a show, and they had that old Peacock opening for NBC. And he did the first half on the same microphone, so we shared a microphone. He was here, I was standing here, and he would do, the following program is brought to you in living color. And I'd say, in stereo on NBC. And I was over the moon, because I got to work with a celebrity, and it was nice, and it was so much fun. And then
That was your second?
That was the second time, about a month after the first one. And then maybe a month later I did something else. But it really didn't take off for a couple of years until Goof Troop came around. And then I started doing a regular series. And that was when and then in the, you know, some of my funnest times, because we don't a lot of times work together in the same studio. So we see each other in the lobby, but we don't work together. But we would go to Disney World quite usually in the summer when they'd have an open like Animal Kingdom or something like that. And we would get to do radio interviews. And sometimes you do like 200 to 300 radio interviews in a week. And they'd have a table with like, this is KFYN Radio in Cincinnati, you know. And then, hey, we got Donald and Goofy on the radio. And so Tony and I would like, Wayne and Rusey would do Mickey and Minnie, and they'd go around and do their schedule. We'd do it a lot. And hey, what do you think, Donald? You know, and you'd have to just be, hey, that's really great.
It was all live.
It was all live, and you'd do. But at night, you know, we'd go out to restaurants and we'd hang around, and it was so much fun because we were at like a family. It really was, unlike any other studio I've worked with, it was, and is, a family. It
We
really
were
is.
protected and we were treated really
Yeah.
well. They fly us first class.
Yeah.
But it's-
You got first class?
Oh.
Oh!
Next question. Oh, were you in the Wilderness Lodge? Were you in
No,
the Port Orleans?
I had to do dishes.
That's right. I
Port
forgot.
Orleans or something.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up the
Swapping
swapping.
the deck on them, it would have. But no, those were fun. Those were fun times. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I was just wondering, whenever you go down water slides or roller coasters, do you ever do the goofy falling voice?
The fall, yeah. Occasionally I'll do that. And I always have to do that. They always record that. I don't know why they get this. One's really good with a library, but they always have me do it all the time. I always, with a new engineer, I at least have to do it twice. Because the first time I say, this is loud, so back off on the volume. And then I'll do it. And to really do it, you just have to really just scream it. It's like, and they're going, geez, you know. Okay, now I got it down. Okay, now I got it. Now then I have to do it again, and then I'll have to do it again. But I probably do that at least once a week, it seems like.
And I know when Pinto was around, they just used the same one.
Same one. And it wasn't even Pinto.
Right, it was Jimmy McDonald, right?
No,
Was
it was a guy named Hans Schroll, who was from the Art of Skiing. He was a yodeler in that cartoon, and he just did that yell, and that's the one that they've used for 50, 100 years, whatever long it was, from 1947, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, so, but they had me do it
So
every
much trivia. You know, you think you know a guy. I don't know a lot about you.
Why, sure.
Are we done?
Any last questions that you'd like to know about the private lives of Goofy and Donald?
Hello. So I was just wondering, you know, with changes in technology, you see those Disney shorts, you can tell that one short at this current age is so much different than a short in the past. So I'm just wondering, do you have to cater your voice or any kind of expression from, you know, right now as compared to in the past? Like, is there some generational...
No, we shouldn't. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Oh, okay, yeah, I wasn't there.
There,
Sorry.
we shouldn't
Yeah, there
change.
shouldn't be. Like I say, in the shorts, they he's a little bit simpler and...
Looking. but
Yeah,
still-
simpler looking, and there's a little bit of a hint of, and Paul Rudish, who kind of directs me into kind of a more of a southern style. There's a little bit, yeah. My life, you know, portions of my life, you
Oh,
know.
I didn't know.
There is a little bit, they kind of, it was take those takes for some reason. But not much, it's just kind of making him simpler. And I think it's because, I think he does the scratch tracks and he does it that way, so he wants me to do it that way.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna ask a few more, if that's totally fine with you guys.
Sure.
Mr. Farmer, you mentioned that you do vocal voiceover training.
Yeah.
Is that mostly in person or via Skype? What?
I do it via Skype, I do it in my studio at home. I have students that want to do demo tapes, or that's how old I am, demos. And commercial demos are a little different than animation demos. They're a little different than game demos, video game demos. And my son works with me on that because he's a much better engineer than I was, even though I did it for like 20 years and started off on, audio tape, reel-to-reel audio tape. And he's really good at editing and music and all of that. So he does all the hard work. I do the directing, basically.
And where can we go for more information on your services?
I have a company called Toonhouse, TOONHOUSE.com, and you can, there's some contact stuff there, and be glad to help you out.
One last question for you, I promise I'll shut up afterwards. Where would both of you want to see your main characters, I guess, branch off in terms of like ways that they haven't been used yet in past, decades. So for example, like a John Wick kind of goofy, lawyer Donald Duck, something like that.
A lawyer Donald Duck.
Well, they can be in any kind of a situation, but hopefully it would be something that's appropriate to the character. Like I still think, and they started this and they didn't finish it, but I think a cartoon about Goofy going through airport security.
Yeah.
And I think
The how-to ones were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They did out of necessity because Pinto had left the studio at that time, so they kind of had a narrator. They were really fun. We did one. We did how to install your home theater, which was really good. And the second one was going to be, I think, how to go through airport security, but it never materialized. And I wish that'd be fun. I'd love to do some more the beauty of skiing and all that kind of stuff. Those would be fun.
you should ask Paul to
Yeah.
just do that one. I think for Donald, being called by telemarketers, I think
Yes, Mr. Duck, would you like some insurance? We got some money.
or if Huey, Dewey, and Louie were on their smartphones all day.
Yeah, he'd throw them up and shoot 'em. Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, one more really silly question.
All right.
So, could both of you, in the Donald and Goofy voices, give your best shot to saying the name of our state's fish? Hoo-hoo, nuku-nuku, apua.
Let's see, it's up there. Fish. Oh, they're hard to catch. What's that? That's what I thought you said.
Mahalo.
Here we go.
We should quote
We got
or
4 minutes. We got 4 minutes for any last questions you want, to know about. And if not, we'll go and party. It's so much fun. I'll tell you, doing a con in Hawaii, it is the best because, sometimes you do it, I'm here at the Abilene, Texas Comic-Con.
We're so glad you came down to Abilene. We haven't had any celebrities down here.
Yeah, we had the weatherman from Dallas down here for a weekend, but
We got a lot of wonderful, beautiful things.
He was in a tractor accident.
The Walmart parking lot.
You never know, some of them are not the best.
So to be right here with the
But
palm
being
trees
here
and-
is, a highlight for us, so it's so much
I
fun.
went snorkeling yesterday and went down the bay and
Yeah, and,
I took a luau at the Royal Hawaiian. You don't get that in Abilene, Texas.
no, we're in Kansas. I didn't, where I grew up, we didn't have oceans and stuff.
Aloha!
Aloha. Well, thank you so much. I guess we'll call it then if no more questions, but thanks so much, and we really appreciate it, because without you guys, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. So
We're gonna go down and sign stuff now if you wanna follow us and get your autograph.
Yeah, we're over there. Where are we? We're in the room somewhere.
Downstairs.
We're downstairs somewhere at a table. Come by and see us and say hi.